You have to have a company culture where everyone, as much as possible, believes in the storytelling component, believes in the mission. And so I think that goes down to like also treating your employees with grace, with care, giving them the opportunity to see where the product's actually being used, and pulling back the curtain a bit on both sides.
And welcome back to Long Run Labs. Today we have Alyssa Clark joining on the show. I was a guest on her show Everyday Ultra yesterday, so go check that out as well. But first, finish this one. Start and finish this one. So Alyssa, thanks for taking some time to chat, and thanks for having me on yesterday.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Thanks for the switcheroo. I'm excited to be on the other side now.
Of course. So the first question is always a tough one, and the question is, who is Alyssa?
You know, I've listened to your podcast and I didn't prepare for this one.
Good. You've been preparing your whole life for this one.
I've been preparing my whole life. I'm very fierce. I definitely am a redhead, even if it's dyed or not. But I have that fierce stubbornness, extremely loyal. And the way that I describe a lot of my life is that I'm chasing the edge of my potential and I hope that I never reach it. I want it to always be further away.
What does that mean?
So that means that I believe that the best is yet to come of my career, of my running, of hopefully the person that I'm trying to be. But I always want that goalpost to be further away. I never want it to feel like I've accomplished that and that's it. And so I've had people say, "Oh, what do you think is your best performance?" And I always say, "I don't think I've had it yet."
Have you always had that perspective, or have you evolved to that? Like, have you chased outcomes?
So when I'm in my flow state, it has nothing to do with outcomes. It has everything to do with this kind of fluid problem solve. It's almost like effortless problem solving, except there is so much effort to get into it being effortless. It's not that everything goes perfectly. It's that I know and I'm capable of solving everything along the way.
Can you give people a little context of what your day-to-day looks like from both a professional and an athletic standpoint?
Absolutely. I am a professional athlete for On and a few other brands. And then I also
shout outs. What are the brands?
Oh, yeah. Cinto, Salty, which it's a lot like Element, Hyperlight, which I think you were maybe hanging out with them
yesterday. Yeah, those guys, Jeremy and Emery, two of the best in the sport.
They're the freaking best. I love them so much. Yeah, they're amazing. So yeah, On, Cinto, Hyperlight, and a few other things kind of in the works. I mean, I feel like This time of year, it's solidifying partnerships.
It's contract season.
It's contract season. I mean, it's always contract season, but it's contract season right now. Kind of have some things sorting themselves out. But yeah, so professional athlete, but also I'm probably ADHD, undiagnosed. So I always have to have a lot of things going on that makes me feel fulfilled. So I also coach for Everyday Ultra, podcast host there. I also do some of kind of the background work for them of community building. Then I do also do some work for Kelly Newland with Rad Boulder, and I'm kind of learning the ins and outs of the agent world. I'm a wife to a military member, so we bop around the world a lot, cat mom. And I also just am a mountain athlete. I love climbing. I love skiing. So just kind of being out in the mountains as much as I can. So I keep pretty busy. I wear a lot of hats, but I like wearing a lot of hats.
I too have ADHD. Mine was diagnosed in 3rd grade. And I also love wearing a lot of hats and can't imagine life without an overflowing hat closet. Ironically, I
also have an
physical hats.
Same. My joke is that every time I'll say to someone, I'll be like, at an event or even just hang out at someone's house, I'll be like, watch, they're going to give me a hat and I don't need any more hats. And then I get a hat and I'm always like, thank you so much. Cause it's so meaningful. But I'm like,
do you have a problem saying no?
Oh yeah. 100%. Like 0 doubt.
Yeah. It's something that I'm working on. My friend Phil is a master of saying no, and I need to learn more about how to do that from him. Maybe we can start with the everyday ultra ecosystem. So I was sitting down with Jeremy and Emery last night, as well as Brad Miles, the CEO of Lever. So we had a lot of business minds at the table, eating burgers and drinking beers. We were talking about the everyday ultra ecosystem and how the sponsorship with Hyperlight has been so effective for a variety of reasons. And so can you talk through, like, it's not a coaching group, it's not a podcast, it's not a community, it's like all of these things. What does the operation look like, and why do you think it's so successful? And a race.
Yes, and a race. Sorry, Joe, if I'm spoiling anything, but this is kind of how it's been explained to me, and I think it makes complete sense, is that, so Joe loves Disney World and Disneyland and like the Disney ecosystem. He is trying to create the Disney experience for ultra runners.
I fucking love that.
Isn't that insane?
I love that.
So what that means is that when you are part of the community, you feel magic. And so what we are doing is creating a community which involves races, it involves community runs, it involves coaching, it involves a Discord, it involves group coaching, the podcast. That is how we beat ChatGPT, or as I heard it referred to last night, is Chatty Daddy, which I can't hear now. You can't. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. So how we defeat Chatty Daddy is that we build something that people feel, that it's not just a service, they are a part of our family. And so that is why there are all of these pieces to it.
Beating Chatty Daddy. So there are business like master classes that are taught on the use of a case study like Disney, right? It is a master class in hospitality. It is a master class making everybody feel like they matter from the moment you walk in the door or enter the park or whatever. Like every single piece of that puzzle is methodically thought out. And so the concept of doing that for runners is like, as soon as you said that, it makes so much sense. I've been able to broker some partnerships for the Everyday Ultra podcast and ecosystem, and they do very well. And this is a major part of it, right? People are a part of a community. There's so many groups that say they're a community and they're not. It's just a list of people that are disparate and don't feel any connection to each other, but they're like bundled in all in one. The grouping does not make for a community. It's the feelings as you're describing it. How much of and I'm going to need to have Joe on the podcast here too to really give the founder story of it. But like, talk to me about how that shows up in the day-to-day experience on the management side of things.
Yeah, so it is very touch heavy. There's many points of contact. So, I mean, I can walk you through when we onboard an athlete. There's a welcome email. They're part of a Discord that I manage the Discord. They get a personalized welcome video from Joe that he sends every athlete. We're working on, I'm sitting on it. It will be sent out this week or next. They get a welcome gift and a handwritten note. And then they're a part, we have group calls where they can ask questions. And so really, it's not just, hey, here's your coach, good luck. It's very much like, hey, we're bringing you into the community and having constant touch points of you are special to us. Like, you're not just a number or a face. And that's something that I have heard with clients is that they feel very seen. And they don't feel like just another face compared to sometimes some other coaching organizations. And that does require, a bit more of that background. I mean, you just get your systems down, but yeah, it works really well. It makes people feel seen in a way that I think others don't.
What was it like for you coming into a group like that? And what sort of, I guess, takeaways could other groups learn from this experience? Don't give away, like, it's not necessarily like giving away special sauce, but it's no secret that hospitality matters. What was the book that Kelly Newland suggested?
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah. It's incredible. I finished it. Have you read it yet?
I'm halfway through it.
I finished it, I think, in like 3 days. And that is Joe. I mean, if you were to like put a person to a book, like that is Joe to a T. That's just how he exists in the pace. He makes people feel welcomed, that they belong, and he's really relatable. And so I think that it starts with the founder itself, and I think that you have to have someone who's willing to give a lot. And he's definitely gotten it back. I mean, he's built an incredible community. I do also think there is a lot to be said about, so I've worked for a lot of organizations where you have oftentimes an athlete who is then stepping into the business world, which can be incredible, but it's very interesting to have someone who comes from the business world stepping into more of the athlete side of things. And so I think having both kind of Joe coming from, I mean, he has, I think, a master's in business, and then I'm more of like athlete, creative, English art major coming in. And then also his COO is quite business oriented as well. I think it creates a very interesting and special ecosystem of, yes, we have the feelings and the athlete side, but we also have the business side of like, how do we make this an effective company? And so I think that melding I see as being something that's very special that I'm not sure that many other companies have, because I think we tend to come in from like, I was a professional athlete and now I'm going to start a business, which again can be extremely successful. But this is the first time I've kind of seen like I was a business person and moved into the athlete space.
Yeah, it's unique, right? A lot of people become coaches because they're runners, they're good runners, and they want to help other people do the craft, and they don't necessarily have that business background. And then I think there's so much opportunity for like a professionalization of the sport in so many ways, right? That's why agents are becoming more popular, and I would love to get more into your work with Kelly and Kelly's work more broadly. And we did a podcast together in December during like the heart of contract season. And that was one of the most popular episodes that I've had so far. It was again a masterclass on like how to think about getting sponsored, and even if you should be sponsored. And we're continuing to see the growth of trail. We're continuing to see the growth of running broadly, and it's getting more into the mainstream. And we're seeing serious businesses like billion-dollar brands playing in the space, both because they're interested in running, but also because they're interested in the people that make up running. This is my whole thesis with the podcast collective that I put together, which is effectively an agency to help big brands and small brands reach their desired audience through high trust mediums like podcasts and social and newsletter. And so like we've done a handful of deals with billion-dollar brands, and you can't just be like an enthusiastic runner and execute a deal with a billion-dollar brand. Like you need to understand how to ask the right questions. And so we're starting to see more of that seriousness taken as it relates to sponsorship and partnerships and whatnot. And so I'm curious, for you, you're a sponsored athlete, you've had that experience. How has your knowledge and understanding evolved over time? And what's been your best practices and how you've seen the sport mature and professionalize?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that maybe that I would love for athletes in particular, and Kelly says this too, to realize is that the brands are not the enemy. Like we are working together to create something that we could not do alone. And so often I think, and this has been an evolution of mine as well, where you're like, that brand didn't sign me, like they suck. Or like, wow, they're not giving me this contract. That's so frustrating. And when you're able to think from the other angle, and also I've had the great fortune of getting to know athlete managers a lot better, I think that kind of changes things, where it's so often what can the brand do for me? And it's actually like, what can we do for each other? Or what can I do for the brand? And so I think really adapting that mindset has helped me to grow partnerships, and also starting to link other athletes as well with brands. So I think that's a part of it. In terms of the evolution, I mean, it's just exciting to see what was a good contract 2 to 3 years ago is not even like, is like a very beginner contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exciting to be like, yes, there is support in this sport. I also think learning kind of I guess I could say like the backside of things is that it's so much about the timing, who you are as a person. Like the number one piece of advice that I give athletes who are interested in becoming a professional is be a good person, run fast. But like those,
In that
if you
order.
break in that order, so much of it is the personality. Does the personality fit on the team? Do you have a good reputation? Do people like being around you? Do they want to buy from you? Because ultimately, we are marketing tools. A professional athlete is a marketing tool to sell product. Whether we like it or not, that's what it is. Doesn't mean there's not a beautiful relationship from that, but like we have to remember that. And so we have to be marketable, which means don't be an asshole. Like that is so critical. And you can be winning races and eventually you will get signed if your races are good enough. Like, yeah, if you're winning UTMB, of course you're going to be signed. But it does really help if you also have a great reputation. People like being around you, they want to work with you. That goes a long ways.
Yeah, totally. The don't be an asshole rule is like number one. The sport is too small and everybody knows each other. And the things you say in small rooms or private rooms, not everything is small or private in a space where everybody knows each other. On the sponsorship growth side of it, I was listening to the Boulder Boys podcast, and they were joking that Hoka needs a salary cap. And then they were like, wait a minute, no, we don't need a salary cap. Like most middle managers at these marketing companies are making more than every athlete, the majority of every athlete on the team. So we still have a lot of work to do. Just for those who aren't like in it, when you said that deals from today are 2 to 3 are way better than what they were 2 to 3 years ago. Can you put some metrics to what that growth looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think it was very realistic, or I guess just it was that often there would be contracts for 5, 10, 15,000 for very strong athletes that were a few years ago. And now I think they're much more, the starting salary is like 40, 50, 60. And then it's much less uncommon to be seeing closer to like 70s, 80s.
Which is still not like enough to live in most of the country.
Yeah, especially in the hotbeds of running.
Right.
But I think that it's taking it from like, this is completely unrealistic to live off of, to, okay, we can make this work.
If you get a nutrition sponsor and a watch sponsor, you can figure it out.
And bonus rollovers as well. The bonuses are becoming, again, like pretty big benefits to the contracts. Lots of rollovers for that as well.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot there. And I see it's just exponentially getting more and more feasible to have that be a lifestyle. So I don't think there's at nearly as many contracts that are basically just like a very supplemental income versus like, hey, you could live off of this. It wouldn't be the easiest, but.
So there are a lot of brands that are listening to this that are both endemic brands and non-endemic or adjacent brands. I have a couple of friends who listen that are at companies that make products that runners like or people who run would be interested in, but they're not, like, it's not shoes or it's not apparel or sports nutrition. How does a brand like that play a role in support? And is there room for like bonuses for them? Is there room for like event activations and storytelling of the use of that product? Like how does a non-endemic but somewhat adjacent brand help? And I say help and I don't mean charity. I mean participation in the sponsorship in a way that is sustainable and fruitful for both the athlete and the brand.
Yeah, I think you probably have more experience on the non-endemic side, because I've heard that's kind of something that you're really passionate about from Joe. And that's something I haven't looked quite as much into. One of the ways, and I'd be curious what you think about this, is I think non-endemic can be bigger ticket items. So, that could be a car, that could be, I don't know, like a KitchenAid. I know that's a very different thing, but like there are things that would be very hard to purchase if you were on a restricted salary. So I think non-endemic a way is like, even though I'm not a huge fan of just product, I do think that with the perhaps level of what that product is, that could potentially be a way that non-endemics can be a part of things in a way that's dipping their toe in, but not per se like, hey, we're going to throw a ton at this. I also will say I am continuously surprised, and I kind of know a little bit of why, but athletes aren't always used in marketing as much as I think they should be. I'm like, you have someone you're paying already. Like, why would you use a model versus using your athlete? So I'm always curious why brands choose to go more down the model side of things and not like, hey, here's your athlete who is put in all this time, money, effort, or not time, but like time, energy, etc., into this using this product, or like is probably the person who can most speak to its effectiveness. I would love to see brands leaning a little bit more on their athletes and, of course, compensating them for that, but have them be a central part of the marketing as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I share similar feelings on the in-kind piece, particularly for something that's expensive or that you'd be buying anyways, like a car or a car purchase or car lease or something related to cars or travel or
like
anything.
Solar panels or Airbnb.
Solar panels,
like,
yeah.
Here's $5,000 of Airbnb credit for the year to go stay. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff seems to be a no-brainer. I put together a partnership for the Boulder Boys and Intrepid Camp Gear, and a couple of those guys were going to buy rooftop tents anyways, and so they got a few of them. They're like $4,500 or $5,000 each, and now they're an affiliate. And 10% of $5,000 is a really strong kickback. In addition to getting $10,000 worth of product. And so these are places where a brand that may be on the smaller side, that can't afford a more traditional sponsorship, or maybe they can, but they're a little more risk intolerant to trying something large before seeing traction. This test your way in model of, hey, let's trade something, and then if it works, we'll add more fuel to the fire is a great model. And yeah, to your point, like I am dying to see an airline sponsor a trail runner.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get obviously all the pushback from people about greenwashing of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but unless you're Dakota Jones and you're bicycling to your races, like you're getting on an airplane and you're flying there. And so I think there's an opportunity for United Airlines for athletes that are in Denver, or Delta for athletes that are in Atlanta, or JetBlue for those in Boston, or wherever your local hub is, or Marriott or Hilton, or like any of these things. Airbnb is a perfect one with Airbnb experiences and all these things. Like Colleen Quigley did a really fun project with Airbnb experiences out of LA. She got paid for it. It wasn't just in kind, but that's the kind of stuff that it's like so authentic, and it gets back to the authenticity piece. Like you can't just be out there shilling whoever will send you some money. I'm about to sign a partnership with a service that I use literally every day, and it's the most useful thing that I use as it relates to my work life, which is Sketch. And for anyone who's listening that I've emailed with to set up a meeting, about Sketch. Sketch is like an AI calendar scheduler that you copy into your email thread, and it basically shares availability, books a meeting, and then sends the invite. I think by the time this episode goes live, our partnership will be live. So if you're wanting to reduce the friction as it relates to booking meetings, which I hear is a problem for running coaches, Sketch.com/longrunlabs will get you some amount of free trial with it. I actually don't know just yet, but we'll put it in the ad read and you'll know by then. But that's the kind of thing that, like, it's not a running product. It's a software tool, but I can speak to it so authentically. And so I had this conversation with Finn years ago on his podcast. And we talked about, like, if you're an athlete wanting to do sponsorships, look in your kitchen, look in your living room, look in your garage, find the things that you're using on a daily basis and reach out to those brands. And Finn and I both took a handful of like consult calls after we offered it in that chat. This was like 2022 or 23, right when he was starting up his podcast. And I remember talking to Abby Hall and Reed Burrows after that in particular. And Abby got like 3 sponsors and Reed got like 4 or 5 from that exact formula of like, look what you're using in your life and reach out to those brands. I posted a Substack called Why Fit Compounds. And it's all about saying no to things that aren't a good fit so that the things that you do promote land. And so they're more impactful. And saying no to dollars in the short term leads to a higher trust relationship with your audience in the long run or for the long run. And for me, it's like trust is the ultimate asset. Like the people that are listening to this podcast, I want them to trust what I'm saying. And I never want to give them an excuse to not trust what I'm saying. And I never want to give any sort of bad advice or promote something that I don't love. And there's so much, everyone, you can say trust is built in droplets and lost in buckets, right? It's like so hard to build trust and so easy to lose it. And so by introducing people to something that you love and that they'll love, it continues to build trust. And if you take a deal because it pays well, but you're not stoked on the thing, you can only do that a few times before you burn all of your credibility.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to the trust in brand partnerships where there's some conversations I've been having for years with brands of like, hey, let's just build relationship, let's build trust. I know that's how Red Bull works, where they take a while to decide upon an athlete. And so my feeling is and not to, don't be a pain in the butt to the company, but be patient on it. It could end up working out. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. But if it's something that you really believe in, that you really use that product, it's very authentic, as you were saying, like just be patient on it. It might not happen that year, but there's so much to be said about building relationships. And that's kind of where I'm at with more of the agent side, is like, it's just being friends with people of the trust on both sides, where when you advocate for an athlete or you advocate for yourself, they're like, yeah, we trust what you say, because it's not just some random person emailing me. It's someone I've had burgers with, I've gone on a run with. And you don't do it's not that you're doing that because you're like, oh yeah, this is something to put in my back pocket.
But it's not a
just
means
like,
to an end. It's like,
no,
that's how you are. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, this is such a fun way to frankly, just to spend time with people that I really admire and that have built things that I find are incredible. So it's like, oh my gosh, of course I want to have that relationship just because I want to learn from you. So yeah, that's a huge part of it.
So you've been with On for a couple of years now. Have you asked them why you continue to be on the team? Pun intended.
Yeah, I did actually. I asked David Kilgore when he was the manager, and now we have Meg McKenzie's kind of our interim team manager. And actually every team manager I have had, I've asked why I've gotten chosen, because I'm always just like, I don't know. It helps me to grow as an athlete, as a person. And from what I can tell, it's like, of course you have to have strong results. So I need to keep putting those up, but also it's contributing to the community, being someone that they're proud to represent, someone who, like, when On comes to me with a project, we actually have a couple of very fun projects coming up this year. Like, I say yes to being a part of it. Like, it is not just a two-way street. And also, it is a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street of like, hey, give me more money and bye, or I'm just going to go off. One of the things that I've had a couple of companies say to me is that I'll often ask to set up a meeting and be like, hey, I have these ideas. Like, what do you think would be possible? And they're always kind of shocked. They're like, wow, I wish more athletes did this, where they communicated race results or like projects coming up or like opportunities. And for me, I'm always on the edge of like, am I being annoying? Like, you can probably ask Emery and Jeremy how many like we text all the time where I'm like, hey, what about this idea? Like, this came up. And they seem okay with it for now. But I'm always like, if I'm being annoying, let me know. But as someone who has a very, we'll say, active brain that's going all the time. I'm always thinking of projects, collaborations, connections I can make.
But isn't that your job, right? Like that's how you add
Yeah,
value to the brand. And so it's less of like,
exactly.
am I being annoying, and more of like, they're probably thinking, I can't believe everybody else isn't doing this.
And that's what I really, I mean, of course, I'm always pushing to have the best results. I have very high aspirations in my professional career. Like I said at the beginning, I believe that there's even more to come. But also, I want partnerships to look back on it and be like, wow, Alyssa made so many connections and like helped the brand. Like, I would love Hyperlate when we part ways, and that's at least 3 years away from happening at the very least. I want them to walk away and be like, wow, partnering with Alyssa brought so many opportunities to the brand, from friendships to, product opportunities to partnerships to collaborate, all of that. Like that is truly one of my goals.
I've had this conversation with Dylan and Aaron about infusing some aspect of like, not advisory, but like consulting into the athlete or partnership agreements. Have you looked at something like that? Because you're adding an outsized impact, at least from where I sit, you're adding an outsized impact that is unique and probably not happening with 80 to 90% of other people. Most athletes are, they're collaborative, but they're communicative, hopefully, if, in order to keep getting resigned, but they're not usually firing off, ideas on a constant basis, or bringing opportunities, or making more introductions. And so kind of what you're doing is like, you're like a part-time employee for the company effectively. And for a small business, that level of support and guidance is immeasurable. Have you considered adding some component, or maybe your compensation is, higher than what it would be based on results and social platforms?
Yeah, so that is something I am interested in looking at. So, in full transparency, this is the third year of my contract. I'm in contract negotiation year this year. 3 years ago, yes, I had a lot of ideas, but I probably didn't have the power behind it to make things happen. I feel like at this point, I do have a bit more, at least, trust in the community and organization and relationships. So actually, my dream, say an on or whatever comes about, is to be a team captain. So that being, working with the other athletes to get their project ideas visible, to, suggesting possible athletes for the team. When we bring in new athletes, making sure that they feel a part of the ecosystem. If I'm not racing at a UTMB one year, I'm there and I'm supporting athletes as well. So in my head, that's kind of the name of it. So one of my absolute like role models is Hillary Nielsen with the North Face. She was this incredible team captain. And I just think that she embodied so much of what I want to be in the sport of, yes, an incredible athlete, but someone who left a legacy of inclusion, of, helping people to navigate what it means to be a professional athlete. And so that is something I would love to do for a company in the future. So yes, I'm hoping that's part of it.
Yeah, and there's so many challenger brands right now that could use that level of support, particularly early 2026 when so many European and Asian brands are coming into the US. I think of Kip
I'm
Run.
so curious.
Yeah,
I just saw Kip Run.
I had a chat with the CMO of Kip Run on Monday, and that episode will be out soon. And then Mount to Coast, like these very well capitalized brands, Norda, and I think there's a huge opportunity there. I imagine that there's a conflict on the apparel side, but like you'd be perfect for Janji athlete manager role, particularly given the relationship with Joe and Janji.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned that. I said this on Single Track podcast. I was supposed to be the team manager for spring. Literally, the contract was in my inbox the night before everything broke.
Oh no.
So that didn't happen, which thank goodness I kind of was like, I'll sign it in the morning. But I know.
And then your deal was half off.
Oh, R.I.P. Spring. My husband
I mean,
still.
you can't just make mistakes that egregiously and not pay for it.
It was rough. Yeah, it was rough. But yes, I could very well see being some kind of team manager athlete role. I'm just trying to be very careful. I kind of say, like, I think that the most dangerous position for a pro athlete is not to be thinking about what they're going to do when they're not a pro athlete. And so I may be sometimes a bit too forward thinking where I'm like, wait a second, no, I still have and want to race at the highest level for the next 3 to 5 years. But also, I mean, hopefully at least 5 to 7. I also am just always engaged in like what's next. I'm always fiddling and like always kind of looking at opportunities and seeing what's possible. So I'm excited. I feel like I can have a career in this sport for a long time. And I've been running ultras for this will be my 11th year. I started when I was 22. I'm still only 32. So it's been a while. At some point, I think I'm just going to be like, yeah, I don't really want to run UTMB again. That's not right now. Like, I still have this really strong fire burning to see what I'm capable of. But also, I'm excited about, okay, in 5 years when I just want to probably do something else, or like I just don't want the pressure that goes into racing. Like, there's a lot of exciting things that I think are possible, and I'm going to keep creating and developing the skill sets to fit into the space in a different manner.
I apologize for not knowing the answer to this, but do you maintain a Substack or an email list?
I do have a Substack. I am hit or miss about posting on it. Sometimes I'm really good about writing, sometimes not so much. But yes, I do have a Substack. And then the podcast. Yeah, I go back and forth about talking about this because some of it I have to kind of keep under wraps because there are things that I know that I can't really share. But I also do think there's probably, yeah, exactly. But also there probably is a fair amount that might be helpful for other athletes navigating the space.
Yeah, and it's like a rising tide lifts all ships type thing where people who operate in an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mentality, they're going to bubble to the top anyways, and people who like want to help others versus keep it all for themselves. But yeah, obviously you can't share what's bound by NDAs and like trade secrets and whatnot, or what makes the On Cloud Ultra Pro such a great shoe.
It's a sick shoe.
It is
it's so good. The first time I tried that, because I'm good friends with Sergi and kind of the development team, I think I wrote back, excuse my language, but this shoe is fucking amazing. I was like, this is such a good shoe.
Yeah, that was my experience too. There are a couple of shoes that feel similar to that, just like very fast plated trail shoes. The Puma Deviate Elite Trail feels similar to that. And then the Kip Run Race Summit Race shoe, their yellow plated trail racer. Those two shoes in particular feel amazing and very, I don't want to say similar, but yeah, similar. And yeah, I love that On shoe. The first like 3 times I ran it here in Boulder, I ran it on the same loop over at El Dorado Canyon, and I PR'd each segment every time, like not trying to, just on an easy run. I was like, okay, the second time, the third time, it just keeps happening. So great shoe.
The thing, I'll just nerd out for one more second. The thing that I love about it, which is why it also works. So I traditionally, if I run too much in a carbon plated shoe, things start hurting. And so, yeah, I mean, just like discomfort. And it is a nylon plate in the On trail shoe. And so I can run 100-miler and I don't have problems with it. And so they've created the feel of a carbon plate, but they have not created the problems of a carbon plate in a shoe. And that to me has been the missing piece. I've said for many years that I don't think that carbon plates are the way of longer trails. I think for 50 to 100K, 100K, we can absolutely get away with it. I think maybe a fat, Western States, which is much shorter than a UTMB. But I do think a missing piece was, what do we do for a UTMB shoe? I think a carbon plate is too stiff and potentially injury causing. So that was really exciting to have develop.
On the shoe development piece, I've been hearing more and more about how athletes are involved in this process. There was a conversation again yesterday on the Boulder Boys podcast that I was listening to where they were talking about athlete training camps and having Hoka or Nike, for example, go to Portland and the North Face go to Denver versus like some exquisite location on a beach somewhere or in mountains somewhere. And the ability, like having the athlete camp in the same city as the brand is the way to have the highest density of like product people and athletes and creating that overlap. Can you talk about your experience in the connectivity with the brand and how the athlete product relationship exists?
Absolutely. So On is fantastic. And this is just I was with Vibram before and they were very testing heavy for their athletes, which I'm stoked about that. I want that to be a part of my contribution. So part of it is sample size. Like, do you have the foot size that works for the product that they have? Because they only make a couple of sizes. But for example, there's a 2 version of the Ultra Pro coming out, and I've been testing 2 different versions of that. They gave it to me at UCMB to do some test running in. I actually ran UTCT in them, and I had a surprising number of people be like, "What shoe were you wearing? It was black. It wasn't white." And I was like, "Wow, you guys are really paying attention on this." Like, I was like, "It's the 2. Sorry, it's not out yet." I'll just say from On, first of all, they're giving us these shoes and then we're giving them feedback. We might send them back. A number of the athletes are kind of on that tester side if they have the right shoe size. So On's very involved with the athletes being a part of the conversations. Also, our shoe designer is an incredible athlete himself. So he's out there testing everything. And then as far as the product testing itself with like camps or summits, etc., we did go to Portland for our On summit that happens in October-ish every year. We get shown like, hey, this is going to be the next, this is the 2026 racing kit. This is the line. This is what we're going for. This is the thought behind it. So the summit is also an opportunity to connect with the designers, with the teams, because On is based in Portland and they also fly. They actually have it in conjunction with the broader team, like kind of fall wrap up. So there's, I think, like 200 On employees there for it. It's wild. It's massive. So like we're having our athlete kind of like conversations in one room. And then there's like this massive On, all out employee meeting happening in the other room. And not only does it give you a chance to connect with different parts of the company, but also it's a chance for them to meet us too. And so you have someone like, oh my gosh, I can't think of his last name, Nagoose. Thank you. Him being there, Jared Nagoose, who's meeting the On employees and like they're able to meet their favorite road runners, the track stars, the trail athletes. I always feel like I'm the one who runs a lot, eat snacks. Like I'm not nearly as impressive as they are, but they will often say like it means a lot to the employees of On to meet the people that they're creating for. And so I think there's this really, and then we have like a mixer where everyone can chat. And so I think it's really impactful to have buy-in from both the athletes seeing the work that's put into the designs and functions, and also the people working for On seeing the athletes that they look up to, or not look up to. Like, I don't know if athletes are, I know that's like often thought like, oh, we look up to them. It's like, I just think like admire maybe for the athletic prowess.
How does unreasonable hospitality play into that? And how does it show up in that space?
In turn, like for the camp space, or what do you mean?
What sort of curation around hospitality and the thoughtfulness of how we meet?
I think it's a mutual respect for each other's jobs, where it's like our job is to run really fast. Their job is to create something that helps us to run really fast, and we have to work together. So I have so much respect for the designers on the side. They're creating a shoe that's absolutely incredible. They're creating tech wear that allows me to do the things I love and be safe. And Also the storytelling component where it's then we tell the story. So I see it as you have to have a company culture where everyone, as much as possible, believes in the storytelling component, believes in the mission. And so I think that goes down to like also treating your employees with grace, with care, giving them the opportunity to see where the product's actually being used and pulling back the curtain a bit on both sides. I think On does it extremely well. Of course, there's, ups and downs all the time, but I've not seen a place where people seem to stick around for a long time because there is a lot of turnover in our sport, but also just seem genuinely happy and engaged to be there.
Makes sense. Let's go back to Kelly and your work with Kelly in the agent space. What has that experience been like, and how cool is it to see the professionalization of, or the need to have representation in trail?
I mean, I think it's incredible. I mean, like I said, this will be my 11th year. There was someone who was representing, I wish I could remember his name, representing athletes maybe back in like the early, like the 19s, 2021. And he had like Camille Herron and a few others. And it was like, even getting a conversation with him was like, holy cow, I can't believe it. But it was just one person. There was just a few people, or like the trail athletes were kind of on the side of road runners. And so I think seeing like, oh my gosh, there's enough money for this to be important. Like I've had conversations now with other people in the space, even a year, 2 years ago, who are like, you're going to have find someone who just wants to help people, not necessarily make any profit off of it. And that has changed in the last year, just a year, where it's like, no, there actually is profit to be made because the deals are big enough. That being said, there are a lot of people who come into Kelly's and my inbox who are not in that position yet. It's not that they're not going to, but often we'll be like, hey, this is better as a consultation where we're just going to help you to get organized, or love what you're doing. There needs to be a few more results to make it worthwhile for you. Like there is no point in hiring an agent to negotiate a $20,000 contract, because an agent does ultimately have to make money, whether it's a percentage or a retainer, to compensate that time. And you're taking so much out of what is already a small contract. And that contract has so much meaning and is so worthwhile for someone who's getting into the sport. And like that is a huge benefit, but that's someone who maybe doesn't need an agent at that time. The cool thing is we are seeing, as I said, contracts where it's like, yeah, it is worth paying someone because you are going to get a significant bump because you are working with that agent. But I see that as being helpful to some athletes. It's not all athletes. But I don't know if there's a space, maybe in pro football, basketball, etc., but in, say, the endurance sports space where every person in that space needs an agent. I don't think that's necessary.
Are you finding some brands don't want to work with agents though?
So I would say it used to be that way. I think there are very few who are like that now. There was definitely, so when I negotiated 3 years ago with On, I would say there were very few agents who were negotiating, and probably more companies were saying we don't really want to work with an agent. Now it's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness there's an agent. We can take out a lot of the emotion, because it is so I mean, you're giving yourself. That's a lot. And so exactly. And so what I hear more often now is like, oh, thank goodness there's an agent in between, because a lot of times too you see relationships where it's like the athlete and the team manager are really good friends. I mean, that happens all the time. And so I've heard from both sides, like, I'm so glad there's someone in the middle, because that's like negotiating with my best friend, and it could get really messy. They either don't ask what they are worth, or, I can't, like, they should ask for more, but I can't tell them that. Like, that's not possible. So I do see so much openness to agents coming in. The only thing I hear sometimes is like, oh, well, I'll try to like move things around so an agent doesn't get as much, which like, it is what it is. I think that that's where a retainer might work better in some regards than a percentage. But yes, I would say there's very much an openness at this point to people working with an agent.
Cool. Alyssa, this has been a blast. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about today that we didn't cover today or yesterday?
No, I mean, it's fun. I feel like we've known of each other, existed in similar spheres. I feel like at every race, I'm like, oh, there's Jonathan. And then you're like, caught up with, so I feel like probably both of us talk to a lot of people as this happens. So it's very fun to get the chance to sit down now for 2 hours combined of the two and get to talk about everything.
Sweet. This has been a blast. And we'll see you out there.
Sounds good.
Cool.